Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Nearly 3 weeks after the tabling of Budget 2026, the dust is settling and it's time to assess now how well Malaysia's fiscal priorities align with the 13th Malaysia Plan, given that this is the first budget under the 5-year plan. Now, budgets are not just about numbers. They reveal what a country values and who it chooses to protect. So what does Budget 2026 reveal to us about those priorities? Joining me on the show to discuss this further, I have Dr Muhammed Abdul Khalid, who is a research fellow at UKM's Institute of Malaysian and International Studies, better known as IKMAS. He's also a World Inequality Lab Fellow at the Paris School of Economics. Also in the studio with me is Dr Amjad Rabi, who is a social security economist with Universiti Malaya's Social Wellbeing Research Centre. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. So I'm going to start with Dr Amjad because we had a conversation just before budget, in the days leading up to Budget 2026, during which you said you had hoped to see more allocation being given to older persons. So talk to me about Budget 2026 as a whole. Did it meet your expectations, Amjad?
I must say no, because I was hoping, as we discussed before the budget, that we would see an increase of allocation for senior citizens, given the situation they are faced with. Very high rate of relative poverty among senior citizens. It's 42% among senior citizens, in comparison to 16% national average. So I was really hoping a prioritization of this group. So that, in that sense, I was a little bit disappointed. Also, I must say, related to old age, also allocation to Minister of Health, I was really hoping to see significant improvement in allocation to Minister of Health, given that the country is aging and its already allocation to Minister of Health is very low the year before. So just to put it in context, especially why I look at health, if we go back to prior to the COVID-19, we had an allocation above 2.3% of GDP to healthcare. Now, last year it was allocation to Ministry of Health, it was 2.2% of GDP. And this year it's 2.11% of GDP. So we've seen reduction. So that those two items, I hope to see a significant increase of allocation to these two groups. Okay. But also I have some views maybe as we speak about the overall budget in comparison to other countries.
Yeah, did you want to just give us a teaser as to those views?
Right. It's with the same logic, I think, you know, if you would, we need, when we look at the budget, it's important to situate it within the developmental path of the country, where Malaysia is at now in terms of its developmental path. So generally speaking, countries that at higher level of development, usually the size of the budget to the GDP is higher. And that's understandable because the country is getting older and education becomes very expensive, you know, at higher level of thinking. So if you would look at, for instance, in Europe, 50% actually of GDP is to the budget, but advanced economies around 42% of GDP. Now, if you come to developing countries and developing Asia, it's about 30% of GDP. Now, if you go lower to sub-Saharan Africa, it would, in 2023, for sub-Saharan African countries, 21.7% of GDP. Now, in the budget in Malaysia, it's actually 19.05% of GDP of 2026. So it's actually decreased from 20% the year before, of 25 to 19%. We were already lower than sub-Saharan African countries. And then it's actually, instead of seeing it increasing to match the countries at the same level of development, actually we regressed. So in general, I think, you know, the hope was to see higher allocation to key social sectors in Malaysia, including health and education. Okay.
All right. So same question to you, Dr. Muhammad, in terms of what Budget 2026 revealed to you about where the priorities are for Malaysia's economic future.
I would look at the budget in context with what you said earlier, 13 Malaysian Plan, because it's the first budget of 13 Malaysian Plan. What does 13 Malaysian Plan says? We're going to spend. And on development expenditure also we're going to spend. On average, we're going to spend about additional 3 billion per year on development expenditure. this budget, instead of spending on development expenditure, we actually cut development expenditure. I understand the reasoning why we are cutting, because we want to reduce the deficit. But we shouldn't cut development expenditure. Development expenditure is not spending, it's an investment for the future. Spending on health, spending on education, spending on infra. So we cut the wrong thing. That's how I see it. We cut the wrong thing, which is very dangerous. And we spend less on things that really matters. For instance, like Dr. Amjad mentioned about health. Development expenditure on health, this budget, increase only 7 million ringgit per year. When we know at the same time, hospital is understaffed, overcrowded, need a lot more money and need a lot more resources. We should double down on healthcare, not cutting or reducing.
Could you repeat that? Did you say the budget increase for health this time was only 7 million ringgit?
The increase in development expenditure on health under this budget is only 7 million ringgit. You shock, I shock, everybody shock, because the amount is too small.
Yes.
And you want to put things in context. If we say we have no money, why we spend 42 million per month on sugar subsidy? Why we spend 2.2 billion to give 100 ringgit to everybody, including billionaire, millionaire, ministers, Vincent Tan, and all those people?
Right.
You don't deserve 100 ringgit. I don't deserve ringgit. Dr. Amjad, he's not Malaysian. He shouldn't get it. But why people who don't deserve it get 100 ringgit? That's 2.2 billion. Last year, another 2 billion. That's already 4 billion. So we cutting things that we're not supposed to cut, and we give money to those people, or we're spending money on those people who don't deserve it. This is a small component on cutting, giving cash to everybody, 100 ringgit. Money that we do not have. We are borrowing nation. Our debt is 1.7 trillion. Why you want to give 100
Okay,
ringgit to
I'm gonna ask you, are you not for universal assistance?
I am.
Okay.
But not for the rich.
But universal is universal, right? Unconditional, regardless.
You can target only those who deserving it. Same. Why should I get 100 ringgit? A clerk do not get the same amount as me. But if you look at the bigger picture, how much we spend on social assistance and social subsidies, why a clerk get less than me? Why a clerk get less than you? Why a clerk get less than a minister? In what way? One of the biggest chunk of subsidies, fuel subsidy. We're going to spend 11 billion next year. For every 100 ringgit that we spend, B20 going to get 4 ringgit on fuel, 4 ringgit. 20% of B20 have no transport, which means they don't benefit anything. If you take the average of B20, they got 4 ringgit in fuel subsidy. T20 got 42 ringgit. Why should I give you more? I should give him more. So that's why we cut, which is a good thing. We want to cut deficit. But we cut the wrong things. And the money that we have, small money, we give to the wrong people.
Yeah. I was trying to convince, so a friend of mine said that he didn't feel the impact of the fuel subsidies. And I was saying, well, I felt it. And we had this argument until he said, well, this is how much I spent and this is how much I saved versus how much you spent and how much you saved. Then I think he made the point for me, the point that you're making now. I want to ask both of you then, how do we think about the allocation of subsidies? Since you brought up subsidies, Dr. Muhammed, when we think about this narrative of, let's only focus on giving subsidies to Malaysians, let's exclude the foreigners, does it bode well, or what does it reveal to us about how this administration is thinking about rationalizing subsidies, which is a key pillar of reform for them, the rationalization of blanket subsidies? Can you give me what you think?
What's the optimal way on restructuring subsidy? First of all, we get mixed signal. Because last year budget, we said we're going to remove subsidy, at least for the rich.
Right.
We're going to restructure subsidy, we're going to reduce it. What we get instead, government double down on giving subsidies. Instead of RON 95 increase, we lower by 6 cents. That costs a lot of money. Again, 11 billion. You should float it gradually. And the savings of 11 billion, what do? So when Amjad goes to the petrol station, he pays the same price as me. And the clerk will go to the petrol station, pay the same price as both of us. But the difference is, the saving goes to him. not to him, and not to me, not to you. That is better usage of money. You give cash, we know who they are. We give cash to them on things and let them decide what they want to spend things on. And again, the way we structure is wrong, and even when we give cash, we limit so many things. They can go only to selected stocks to buy selected things. How do we know what Makcik Kio wants?
Right.
Have you been to Makcik Kio's house? Have they been to Makcik Kio? They haven't been. How do they know?
Can I? Oh, sorry.
Because this is very important. Because we don't trust these people, we don't trust our fellow Malaysians to spend things what is right. We think they're going to spend joli, apa nama, tak ada arak lah, rokok ke, benda tak berfaedah. Itu tak betul. We did a study with UNICEF. We follow the low income household during COVID. 1 year, we went to their house many times. What do we find when they get cash? They spend on two things. They spend on barang dapur, food lah. And the second thing, they spend on children education. The idea low income doesn't know how to make money in Malay word is kurafat. Ni benda tak betul. It is a myth that we think they do not how to spend money. We do not find evidence widespread abuses. Ada satu dua abuse, normal lah. You cannot expect 100% good to spend well. But overall, on average, they spend on the right thing because they know what is right for the family, what is needed on the family. We don't. Putrajaya don't. So the saving from fuel subsidy, you float it gradually, you save, you give more. Even the 200 ringgit that we get, if you exclude the rich, the upper class, the low income can get triple the amount of money they get at the moment.
So that's where I wanted to kind of push back on. When you said we know who they are, we know who the quote-unquote deserving are, those who need assistance, and then you speak of excluding the rich, which is easier than...
Much easier.
Amjad, you mentioned in our conversation before budget, you said, well, actually it's easier to identify the rich and exclude them as opposed to just finding out who the poor are, the needy are.
And it's simple mathematics. If you have from 0 to 100, either you can count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 80, right? Or you can count down from 100 to 80, so it's easier. Because it's only 20%, and they have also fingerprint everywhere, the rich, right? Because they pay taxes, they have cars, they have other things. But I want to come back also to relate it to the fuel subsidy, because this is also a study we put forward 2 years ago at this, Social Wellbeing Research Center, and we presented to the government. At that time, the game in town was PADU. And it's not that I kind of, smart, but I lived in many countries, and this is the premise that somehow AI will solve the issues you bring. I've seen this movie in many countries, and all arrive at the same conclusion. That is very difficult. So, but the second best alternative is to remove, it's just you have the data, you know who is rich, to remove them without doing expensive exercise like PADU and collect data from everyone. Coming back to the issue of the fuel subsidy, the best model actually we've seen that resulted in significant improvement in people's life, it was in Iran, 2015. The fuel subsidy in Iran, what they did, they said, okay, we're going to float it right away. However, we're going to take an amount of money to every household. This is for political reason. It's also very sensitive to remove fuel subsidy. And the amount was about 29% of median income to every household. At the same time, they said we will double allocation to Ministry of Health. It used to be like Malaysia, 2%. It went all the way to 4%. The result, reduction in poverty by 50%, from 12% to actually more than 50 to 5%, with higher reduction in rural area. Now, we can look at other examples that didn't work well that use, the idea we will look at PADU, we identify the 30%, which resulted in inclusion-exclusion error. So my thinking, like we can learn from those lessons. Coming back to your question about universality, and this is where I think we have sometimes misunderstanding of the word universality. Universal benefit doesn't mean to give everyone. To give everyone in a category. That's difference. Different between to give every Malaysian or to give every child. You know, because children or senior citizens, like I promoted social pension, we know that they are more vulnerable group. Or children, it's not the objective of the cash assistance, not only anti-poverty program. It's actually developmental. You want the child to receive the nutrition, the other things. So that's when you prioritize children. So the 100 ringgit given from 18 and above. To me, if it was done from 0 to 18, I would support it 100% because this is more vulnerable group. Or if it was given 65 and above, I would say this is great because, and maybe increase the amount because senior citizen. So, you need to have differentiated approach in life cycle. The ones in the working age population, usually it's not a good idea to give cash. You give them skilling and reskilling and job matching, you know, because cash is not the solution. But senior citizens, they're not supposed to work. They're past, and it's not only anti-poverty, but it's show that the country cares about you, you know. Or children, they're not supposed to work. But the ones in the working age population, skilling, reskilling into the labor market.
That makes a lot of sense to me. When you think about how much money is being spent on social safety nets, on social assistance, does Malaysia have that wiggle room? So you talked a little bit about developmental expenditure. Dr. Muhammad said we're cutting from the wrong kitty, so to speak. Do we have that wiggle room? Is this just at the end of the day a misallocation or poor decision making in terms of where to spend the money? Or is Malaysia so fiscally constrained that we actually don't have much wiggle room? We can't cut the operating budget anymore.
And this is very good, the question, you know, and the answer to this question is cultural, you know, because I mean, if you are in North Europe, the social contract is different. Right. Everyone understands that we need a bigger government. If you are in the US, it's different. If you are in Malaysia, it's different. There is the cultural element matters, but there are kind of guiding principles that regardless what culture you are in, they form, you know, like what good governance in this issue. And one of the basic principles I shared that as country developed, usually increase your taxation to GDP, usually. So I mentioned that the expenditure side is in Malaysia lower than sub-Saharan African country because tax to GDP is lower than sub-Saharan African country. It
is so low, Malaysia's tax to GDP.
And it was not like this in Malaysia. It was not, if you go back 1980s into even 1990s, it was significantly higher. It was at one point about 20% of GDP.
No.
If you go back, at one point it was similar to South Korea, 20% of GDP. And South Korea income increases, Malaysia's also income increases. So you would expect is to see tax to GDP ratio increases, but Malaysia kept declining. And that's why we have Gini coefficient. It's also like very high. It's again, the inability to tax and re-inject in investment in social sector, that's what causes inequality. And now countries can afford it at early stage of development because you have many young people that they can work, they can. But as the country become older and older and aging, you cannot afford low tax regime and low investment because education becomes expensive. High thinking, productivity requires really solid investment. Relying on the private sector that would take, you know, will not be sufficient. So it has to be public solution. So it's again, like I think in the long run it will catch with Malaysia. Now we have very young population, median age is 30 years, but as the country age, this lack of investment in education and health will catch up.
Yeah, it's already catching up, right? Where Malaysia's aging faster than we're growing rich. So that will eventually threaten the sustainability of our social protection system.
But on this one, it's still Malaysia, it's still, now the new data that I was looking at, previously we thought that Malaysia's demographic window of opportunity, which would end in 2022. Now the recent data, I was just analyzing it, it will extend to 2033. So Malaysia's demography at the moment is okay. Now the example, just to understand demographic window of opportunity for Japan ended 1992. And the GDP per capita for Japan was increasing like a rocket. It stayed in momentum until like 3 years after the 22, until 95, 96. and then started, if you look at the GDP per capita, started to be flat. And that's common. Because but for Japan, it's lucky because they reach already very high level income. So for Malaysia, if we have demographic window of opportunity to 2033, we would expect solid economic growth under status quo to continue to 2035-36. After that, you need momentum. And that is productivity, education, and health.
So this is crucial time for us. Absolutely crucial. Dr. Muhammed.
You asked, do we have enough money?
Yes.
We do not have enough money because we spend on the wrong things. We do not have enough money because we don't collect enough, like what Dr. Amjad says. I'll give a simple example on taxation. If I want to give tax holiday or tax credit or no tax, I give to the poor. Simple example, car. I'll give this example before. Who should get zero tax if I want to give zero tax on buying car? Do I give to Makcik Kia who buying a Kancil, or I give to you who buying Audi EV?
Or an EV.
Or an EV. EV zero, no import duty, no excess duty, no sales tax, no road tax. Makcik Kia buy the same car as a car, but Kancil much cheaper, pay all 4 types of tax.
But there's a sustainability imperative, right? One is fossil fuel and one is green.
I put a cap. If I want to promote green, I put a cap. Singapore put a cap, 15,000. I gave you tax exemption up to 15,000. In Malaysia, you buy a 600,000 EV, you get 4 types of taxes, you pay nothing.
Yeah.
So far, up to last year, we sold about 50,000 EVs. If one car is 100,000 tax forgone, that's 5 billion bucks. So we complain we have no money because we don't collect, we give too much to the rich. At the same time, you take from the poor. You don't take from them, and the money that you collect from Makcik Kia, you give to the rich again. Sarah, you give fuel subsidy. It's not about not enough money. We don't collect correctly, we don't spend correctly. Even the way we spend, I give an example of Sarah. I agree with Dr. Amjad. If 100 ringgit is for all children, everybody would support.
Right.
Because we have serious issues about child stunting rate and underweight, malnutrition issues. People would not complain, but why you give to all? Spending, big chunk spending, DE. You look, we discussed this before. I'm from Penang. It hurts me to say this. Why we spending 20 billion is going to be 20 billion on LRT in Penang. At 4% interest, that's 800 million a year just for Penang, for one project. The deal earlier was that Penang, you want to have LRT, you get one contractor to do it, in return you get an island, 3 islands. Now they get 1 island and federal government pays the entire thing. Why should Kelantan people pay, Johor people pay, Sarawak, Sabah pay for one project in Penang? It's unfair.
At the beginning,
then we say we have no money.
At the beginning of our conversation, you started by saying how important this budget was because it was the first in the 13th Malaysia Plan. What about this budget reveals to you that it's not exactly aligned to the 13th Malaysia Plan? What are you missing from this budget?
We expect that the subsidy rationalization is more targeted to the deserving, more spending to the vulnerable, more spending on investment of the future, on healthcare and education. That's what it's supposed to be, because it should be aligned with 13 Malaysian Plan. Although 13 Malaysian Plan has some issues, the targeting is not ambitious. Even the spending on healthcare on 13 Malaysian Plan is the same as 12 Malaysian Plan, no increase. Despite we know if you don't have to do any research, you just go to government hospital, government clinic, go to Kelana Jaya clinic or any government hospital, the queue is too long and doctors been complaining. So 100 ringgit, 2.2 billion, subsidy that we give to the rich to buy EV cars, you don't give the subsidy, you give to the hospital, you give the doctors, you give to the nurses. It's better because this would increase our productivity in the future. So you should spend more on this. And 13 Malaysian Plan also, I divert a bit, the ambition is too low. 2 examples I give. Number 1 on poverty. We target by 2030, poverty rate will reduce to 4.7. Poverty rate last year is 5.2. Basically, we achieve it.
This is relative poverty?
No, it's absolute poverty.
Absolute poverty.
Basically, it should be almost zero.
Yeah.
Then you focus to relative poverty. Inequality. Basically, we target by 2030 inequality level the same as America. I want inequality level same as Nordic countries. Wages. Real wages for workers by 2030 going to increase between 1 to 2%. Economy going to grow by 5%. You short charging me.
Right.
Short charging the workers. So it's less ambitious. Even we ignore this. The target of 13 Malaysian Plan is not being translated or not being translated through this budget.
Right.
And that is something that we should revisit.
Okay. In the couple of minutes left, I'm going to give Dr. Amjad the last word. What did you want to see in terms of redirection or realignment, if I may use that word?
It's 2 minutes. I can give a metaphor.
Yeah.
Like before I came here, I was tired, so I immediately went to get hot chocolate just to give myself a boost. And this metaphor, we can apply it really to the economy. You can give sugar that just usually you get glucose if you are in hospital and you need to, just to give you a quick boost. But then you need a protein. If you are athlete, you need a protein. So the protein for the economy that I mentioned 2035 when the momentum from the youthfulness of Malaysia will lose.
Yes.
What the muscles, the protein you need to inject in the economy, if I use this metaphor, is you need to invest in health, education. This is the human capital. That's what take you long. Maybe sometimes at time of recession, you use sugar, you use hot chocolate like what I did here just to give myself a boost. But that should not be a long term. It should not be at a time when the economy is hot. The 100 ringgit at a time, it should be more now. I think the protein, the more structured kind of spending.
Yeah, I really like that analogy.
Human development, sorry, last thing, the human development. There is a human development index. Malaysia, where it's ranked, it's almost average world. It's lower than Vietnam. Lower income, usually higher income country would have higher human development index, which is education, health and nutrition. But it's lower than Vietnam. Vietnam way ahead of us. So it's again like this where we need to think about.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Time is jealous of us, and this is a rich topic to explore. But thank you so much for helping us think through, from a bird's eye view, the budget of next year. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.